Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Dante, aka Donny Boy, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a review on Rise of the Skywalker. I'm going to be naming a couple things that I didn't like about the movie, well, a few things. Things that I did like about the movie, and one major thing that people need to shut the hell up about. Like a big thing that I think people need to shut up about. But I think that I've seen a couple of reviews just briefly. I think that the movie's getting a lot of slack, a lot of slack, and I think that's, I mean, yeah, I see where it's coming from, but at the same time, I think that it's a little bit too harsh on the movie, and I'm probably gonna say why, but I can see why a lot of people won't like it, but then there's also reasons why people do like it. A little bit of background on me when it comes to Star Wars. I'm wearing my Vader shirt. I have loved Star Wars ever since I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, my mum used to shove me and my brother in front of the TV and you should just chuck on Star Wars, and that's all. It's literally all we'd watch at one point. So I've loved Star Wars since I was knee high. Like, absolutely loved it since I was a kid. Coming into this movie, I didn't have too much expectations on it. All I came into this movie thinking was that it's a Star Wars movie. I like Star Wars. That's all I'm going to think about, is that, you know, I like Star Wars. I'm not coming into thinking that it's going to be, it has to be the best one out in the trilogy. And I knew it wasn't going to be. In the first point I'm going to get to, and the reason why I said that I thought straight away it wasn't going to be the best of the trilogy, is because of The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi was an absolute trash fest. I think it was the worst one of the trilogy. A lot of people think that this one is. A lot of people think that Force Awakens was. But I personally think majority think that Last Jedi is. The reason why I didn't like The Last Jedi was because Rian Johnson, yeah, he's a really good director. I think Dan Hart, that he's actually pretty good. But a lot of the points that he was bringing up in that movie, trying to bring up in that movie, just ended up going back on itself in the end, where it's just like, oh, we need to get rid of the Jedi and Sith and become one and stuff like that. And then at the end of the movie, it was kind of just like none of that meant anything. You know, I hate the whole sequence in The Last Jedi with when it's been too preachy on that casino world or whatever, that all the horses and stuff like that. Felt Rose was just tacked on and no one really liked her character anyways. Yeah, so I thought that movie was absolute trash fest. I hate how they treated Luke in that movie as well. So I feel like from the absolute, and I could go on for hours about how Last Jedi was just, how I did not like that movie at all. Especially on my second viewing when I watched that for the second time. Saw it twice in the cinemas. When I watched it for the second time, I was properly watching, I was like, yeah, no, this movie's a lot worse than I watched it the first time. So I felt like, you know, especially when they had to bring back J.J. Abrams into this movie, it was just, you couldn't expect much out of it. That's why I didn't expect much going into it, because, you know, they almost had to like try and revive this whole trilogy into one movie. You know, it's not like if the first one was bad, at least I had two movies to make up for it. You know, the first one was okay. It wasn't the best, but I liked it because I felt like it set something up really well. Like, it set it up decently. You know, but then The Last Jedi just kind of crashed it down, and then J.J. Abrams is trying to revive this whole trilogy in the last one and trying to make it really good. And it was never going to happen. It was never going to be a 10 out of 10 movie. You know, I thought that they did as the best that they could with what they had left. First, I like to end everything on a good note, kind of. So I'm going to name the bad things and things I didn't like about the movie. First thing, I felt the movie was a bit boring at times. There was times in the movie when I was watching it and I was kind of just sitting there and I was just like, yeah, even some of the action scenes were a little bit boring, more or less, especially at the start with when they were jumping from when they were light speed jumping, that's it, I think it's called. I felt like that was a bit boring. The little chase in the desert was kind of like meh. The big fight at the end, at times it was really good. Then at other times it was like, it's kind of, I'm not really getting that invested into it. A lot of times when they were fighting, I was kind of like, can you just get back to what's happening with Rey, Palpatine and Kylo? I felt like that was a lot more interesting than the actual battle scenes were. So yeah, that's why I felt like the movie wasn't really the best as well, because a lot of it at times was very, very boring. My second point into the reason why that this movie could have been a lot better, sorry, and why it wasn't that good, was that there was no plan for this trilogy, and I felt like that was its downfall. Like, its massive downfall was that there was no plan. That's why Last Jedi was so bad, hated by critics and by J.J. Abrams. Like, that's why he came back in, because I can't remember what her name was, the one that's looking over all the Star Wars. Her name always goes out of my head. I can never remember it. I think it starts with an R or something like that. There was no plan at all. You know, I'm not a massive fan of Marvel, but I do like what they did with the whole entire franchise. They had a plan from day one, from Iron Man. They knew what they were doing all the way up to Endgame. Obviously, it changed along the way, but they had a big plan. They knew that they wanted the Avengers, and they wanted this, and they wanted that, and they had the movies planned out and everything. They kind of had, they had scripts done in advance. I'm not 100% sure, but it felt like that. Felt like they knew from day dot exactly what they were doing. It felt like that. With these movies, it just felt like they didn't know what they were doing from day one. They just had Force Awakens, and then they give this to Rian Johnson. We're like, and he even came out and said it. He was like, I don't know how they had a go at me. They didn't tell me what they wanted in the last one, so I just came up with something myself, and I felt like that was absolutely stupid. How can you not have a plan for a trilogy this big? Even in the prequels, George Lucas knew what he was doing, even though those were so bad. And I hate those movies a lot. Besides Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones is my most hated Star Wars movie, by the way. He knew what he was doing. He absolutely knew what he was doing from day dot. You know, and they didn't know how could you not know what you wanted out of this trilogy? You know, I felt like Force Awakens was a good way, and then they should have just given Rian Johnson, alright, this is what we want you to do. Give it a little bit of your own twist, but this is the general of what we want going into the finale. You know, and that's where The Last Jedi, I felt like, I'm going to be coming back to The Last Jedi a lot, because I felt like that is what, it kind of set that movie up for this one not to be that good. And another thing with The Last Jedi is that because of that, they were scared to take leaps because of the backlash. You know, they had a lot of cameos. Like, I felt Lando Calrissian was a bit tacked on. Like, he was kind of just added on, chucked in there, and was like, oh, here you go, here's Lando for a little bit of nostalgia kind of thing. You know, a couple of nostalgia points. Nostalgia points are always good, especially in a franchise like Star Wars. You have to have nostalgia. You absolutely have to. You know, it's one of those, you know, franchises that's been going for 40 years, since the 70s. It's been going since, so you have to have a little bit of nostalgia in these movies. But I felt like, you know, Lando was kind of just randomly tacked on, and I just felt like he was almost pointless in this movie, besides near the end when he helped bring, you know, all those fighters and all the people from around the galaxy to help fight against the new Empire, or the Final Order, or whatever you would like to call it, because this basically is the new Empire, you know, as it is under Palpatine. Yeah, so they just didn't really take too many leaps in this movie. It did feel a bit simple at times, and I felt like The Last Jedi was the reason why they didn't try to take any leaps. Because The Last Jedi tried to just twist it, flip it on its head, and no one liked that at all. Like, they completely flipped it on its head, and then because of that, they just felt like, alright, we're going to keep it very, very simple in this one, and that's like what they did. Another thing from The Last Jedi, where in The Last Jedi they said that Rey's parents were no one. You know, they said that they were no one at all. And then all of a sudden in this movie, they said like, oh no, they are someone now. And that just kind of confused me a bit. I was sitting there at first like, wait. In The Last Jedi, they said that Rey's parents were no one, but now they're saying they're someone. And the way that they try to recover that was really, I felt was really funny and a little bit stupid, is that they said, oh no, they are someone, they chose not to be anyone. Like, come on, that is a little bit stupid. It's not really you can't really recover from that. And like, once again, Last Jedi fucked that up so bad for this movie. Another point where I said, like, I felt Lando was tacked on. I felt Palpatine was a little bit tacked on in this movie. He was kind of just shoved in there. And the reason why it felt tacked on is because obviously he was just randomly shoved into this last movie. If they had to set this up from the second one, where they kind of introduced Palpatine just a little bit, not as major as you were. I like how he was involved later in the movie. You know, how he was involved all around, but he did feel tacked on, and the reason was that he was just randomly shoved into this last movie. And I had a feeling from the moment that he was announced, I was like, man, it's just gonna feel very, very tacked on, that he's just gonna be shoved into the middle of something, and he's gonna be like, no, I've been pulling the strings all along, which is good. I kind of like that Palpatine's, you know, showing, you know, that he's pulling the strings all along. And I'm gonna come back to that point when I come to all the things that I liked about the movie. Yeah, but he felt very, very tacked on. I felt like if they had to introduce him slightly in The Last Jedi, where if that was just a completely different movie, introduce him a little bit, show him that Snoke was his puppet, but just very lightly and kind of near maybe the middle end of the movie, then it would have set it up even better, because it would be like, oh wow, Palpatine's involved in this, man, I can't wait to watch Rise of the Skywalker, or whatever the last one would have been called if Last Jedi was completely different as well. At the end of the movie, Rey and Kylo's kiss scene felt so awkward. It was cringeworthy. Very, very cringeworthy. I felt like that the kiss was unnecessary. I did know that they kind of had a connection, and I like how their connection was, because one of them's a Skywalker and one of them's a Palpatine, and those two families, those two names have always been connected from Phantom Menace, because of Anakin, you know, basically being Darth Plagueis' kid, because he was, you know, manipulated by the Force and stuff like that. So they always did have that connection, and I felt like that connection was good, and it was really good used in this movie, their connection. But the kiss was pointless. I felt like they could have just hugged, and that would have been it. And it was like, man, they show compassion, they show reason for each other, but the kiss felt so awkward. I was sitting in the movie, and I don't think I've ever cringed so hard in a Star Wars movie.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
At that, I remember sitting there, and I was just like, they didn't need to do that. They didn't need to be lovers. Like, it was very, very pointless. Absolutely pointless, that part. Absolutely pointless. I don't like how in The Last Jedi, at the end of the movie, when they're hiding on that salt planet, and they call out for aid, and no one comes and helps at all. Like, you know, they said, oh, no one's coming for us. And then all of a sudden, and once again, going back to Last Jedi completely set this movie up not to be as good as it could have been. How no one came in The Last Jedi at the end of the movie. And then all of a sudden, at the end of this movie, the whole galaxy shows up at this fight. The whole entire galaxy shows up. Like, the Resistance, or whatever you want to call it, is weaker now than it was in The Last Jedi. Like, it really was. At least in The Last Jedi, they had a little bit of faith and a little bit more. But no one came at all, and everyone was like, no, we're not coming. No. But all of a sudden now, the whole galaxy shows up and is here to help fight the Final Order, New Empire, whatever. It's like, really? Really? No one showed up at all, but now all of a sudden everyone's here and it's all good now? Like, come on, that was just a little bit stupid. The way they treated General Hux in this movie was a little bit stupid, showing that I didn't mind that he was the spy. I mean, I didn't care too much. I was kind of like, I was a little bit surprised. I was surprised, but I wasn't, because you could tell, especially from the start, you could tell that General Hux and Kylo Ren never got along, never. And if he wanted to get rid of Kylo and he wanted to be the supreme leader or whatever, he could have gone about it a completely different way and tried to bring him in from inside. But he was a spy for the Resistance, and then he said, I don't care if you win. But then why the hell are you helping them out then? If you're helping them out, they're gonna win. most of the time. You know, if you're trying to bring them out from the inside, and then they just killed him off. Just shot him, like just there. Like he was barely in the movie, and he was barely used in this movie. He was seen as such a major part in the first two movies, as you know, him and Kylo as like the two, you know, kind of under Snoke, and then in this movie they kind of just didn't care about him and then just completely got rid of him at one point. That General Pride just shot him and was like, yeah, no, we found the spy, that's it, General Hux is gone. And then he wasn't mentioned for the rest of the movie at all. He just, after he was shot dead, it was like he would never existed at all. And he was seen, I thought he was seen as such a major point in the first two films. And now to the person, my last point of one of the things that I didn't like about this movie. And going back to the person who killed General Hux. Who is this? I've written his whole thing down, his name and his title. Allegiant General Pride. Who is this guy? He's never... I searched him up on the Star Wars wiki. I clicked out of it now. I should have kept it up on my screen. But he'd never been mentioned before. At least I don't think, unless he's somewhere in Legends or something like that. He was never mentioned ever. And then all of a sudden, when he's talking to Palpatine, he was like, "I was loyal to you during your reign, and I still am now." And it's just like, you weren't even in the first two movies. We didn't even know who you were, and now all of a sudden you're like a major part in this movie. Who the hell are you? Like, I didn't care for him. Like, when it comes to bad guys in movies, you know, you gotta care a little bit, especially in The New Hope. Oh, what's his name? I can't believe it's gone out of me, out of my head. That's it. I just remembered it. I searched it up and I found it. Tarkin. Tarkin was such a good general, and you absolutely loved him from the moment he was on the screen. And you could introduce the character because it's the start of a trilogy. But to introduce someone that big at the end of the trilogy, no one cared. I didn't care for him at all. And you kind of have to care for the bad guys, because that's what makes a great movie. You know, is the bad guys is what makes a great movie, which is the reason why this movie was still decent, because I like Kylo Ren. And I like Adam Driver as an actor as well, and everyone loves Palpatine. No matter what, even if I said before Palpatine was tacked on, you always love him. But General Pride was just shoved in this movie. No one knew who he was before. No one cared for him, and then he was just put as like this major general, the one who killed Hux, and now he's the new general, pretty much. Now onto the good things. The things that I did like about this movie. There's not as many as there is bad points. But I think these good points are very good points to make this movie a good movie. Like I said, I don't think this movie was amazing. I didn't think it was a masterpiece, but I didn't think it was bad, and I did not think it was terrible at all. I like how they treated Rey's parents, besides the fact that, you know, that they first was said with no one, and now all of a sudden they're someone. I like that they weren't Rey's parents weren't Luke's. I liked that. You know, I felt like if they just used Rey's parents as Luke's, I felt like it was just shoved on. I liked how she is Palpatine's granddaughter. I felt like that was actually pretty cool, and it was a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't look up any spoilers or any leaks. Apparently there was leaks, and a couple of people kind of knew. I think there was a lot of things that people already knew coming into this movie, and a lot of leaks were actually true. I don't know if that was one of them. It might have been. I did not pay attention to any leaks at all, because I wanted to go in this movie not knowing really anything. But I did like that she was Palpatine's granddaughter. I felt like it was a little bit of a twist, and how to bring her into the reason why she was so powerful in the Force from day dot, because everyone was like, how the hell is she this powerful in the Force? She's basically a nobody. Well, now she is a somebody, and I like that she was a Palpatine, because it brings, you know, basically, you know, why she has so much pull towards the dark side. One of my favorite parts from this movie was how they paid homage to Legends. If you don't know much about the Legends, in the Legends comics, after Return of the Jedi, Palpatine has experimented with cloning, and he does clone himself and comes back to life. And I like how they bring that into canon. I like when there's a lot of things that people liked from Legends and they bring it into canon, like Darth Bane in the Clone Wars. A lot of people like that. I absolutely love Darth Bane. I think he's a great Sith Lord. He was only in Legends, but then with that episode where Yoda goes to that planet, they bring Darth Bane into canon. So I like how there is some things that they take from Legends and they bring into canon. And I like how they use Palpatine's cloning in this movie. How it's like, yeah, he's been experimenting with cloning, and it's on this Sith world where he's been hiding out this whole time, and he was doing a lot of things that you didn't know during the original trilogy. He was doing so much things just in case for his fall there was his backup. No, that's what was happening in Legends as well. During the original trilogy, he was doing a lot of things behind the scenes just in case of that Darth Vader probably didn't even know about. Only Sith loyalists knew about it. People that were undying to him. Because I think he probably always knew that Darth Vader might turn on him one day. That he would go back to being Anakin Skywalker. The use of the Force in this movie, I liked it a lot. I felt like that when that transporter was going off into the sky and Rey and Kylo were fighting it, was a little bit crappy. Besides the point where like lightning came out of her fingers, and I was just like, what the hell? But Kylo already knew by then. But I like the teleportation parts of this movie, where their connection between them two has grown so much, between just being able to see each other through the Force, but objects being able to go from one place to another with the Force. And I like how at the end, when Kylo needed help against the Knights of Ren, who are obviously loyal to Palpatine and the Sith more than they are to Ben or Kylo himself, how she gave him a lightsaber. I felt like that was really good. A couple of the fights that they had between each other, where he was one place and she was another, and they were like destroying things and it was going from one place to another. I felt like that was really cool. I felt like that part of the Force, because the Force can do many things. The Force can do things that probably have never been even shown before. Because it's one of those, the Force is like something that lives inside you, and it's basically you're able to manipulate space, time, and atoms and all that. So there's like a science. There can be like a science part behind the Force kind of thing. So the Force can basically do anything, and I think a lot of people don't know that. Is the Force can do anything. It's almost like you're manipulating the galaxy. That's kind of a way to put it for someone to understand it who doesn't know who's never seen Star Wars before. It's like, how the hell is the Force able to do this? I thought it was only able to pull things. No, Force can do anything. Literally, basically anything. It's just, obviously, just depends on how powerful you are in the Force and your practice in it as well. So I like how they're constantly introducing new ways that characters are using the Force, and I really like how they use that teleportation in this movie, and that the connection between Rey and Kylo has grown over time. I did like how Kylo came back to the light. I felt like, in the first one, when Han Solo tried to bring Kylo back to being Ben, back to the light side, he failed. And the fact that he killed his father, he didn't care for him. But then feeling the death of his mother, knowing that he killed his father, and now his mother has died, to reached out to him one last time and died through the Force, and then Rey getting the upper hand, stabbing him, and then her keeping him alive, and then him once again seeing. I like the cameo by Harrison Ford, by the way. I absolutely loved it. I did not expect Harrison Ford to be in these movies at all. I thought he was just, after The Force Awakens, I thought he was done. I thought he was like, that's it, I'm done with Star Wars. But no, it was really good. I liked his cameo. And I liked how his interaction, the interaction between Kylo and Han Solo to bring Kylo Ren back to the light side. I really did like that part. I thought it was really good, and how he revived himself at the end of the movie, where, you know, Rey does die from killing Palpatine. And then, you know, yeah, Rey does die from killing Palpatine, and then, you know, because you can't necessarily heal someone using the Force. You can't just, you know, bring someone back to life. You have to take some part from you and then give it to them. So Kylo Ren knew that because of all the stuff that he's done. Yeah, he can revive himself, but he can't, you know, he can't go to the Resistance and be like, yeah, I'm gonna be the new Jedi now. Yeah, Rey's dead, it's me now. He knew that he couldn't do that, so he had to sacrifice himself and, you know, give his life force to Rey. And that was like his last dying act, like Anakin did in Return of the Jedi, where his last act was to kill Palpatine and to bring himself back to the light, sacrifice himself to let Luke live. And I really liked how Kylo did that in that movie. I like how Rey was a Palpatine, and she showed it. From day dot, she always had a little bit of aggression in the way she fought and her facial expressions. That's because she was a Palpatine. Palpatine isn't a very aggressive character, very selfish, and also very what's that word? Cocky. Very cocky character. He always thought no matter what, even if he loses now, in the long run he's gonna win, and he's always about himself, more or less. You know, that's Palpatine. Obviously Rey doesn't show all those qualities, but he's in a very aggressive character. And that's where Rey shows it, is that she's a very angry character, and she's like, no, it has to be like this, you know, no one can die, and this and that. You know, it's you know, I gotta keep everyone alive, kind of thing, where it's like a little bit of that aggression that Anakin would show a lot in the Clone Wars and kind of stuff, you know, because she is a Palpatine. She showed a little bit of the dark side that's already in her, because she is Palpatine's grandchild. Also with Rey and Palpatine, the ending between Rey and Palpatine was really good. The way that, you know, Palpatine was like, all the past Sith live in me. And then when, you know, Rey's about to face Palpatine for the last time, where it goes up into space, and you hear all the voices from past Jedi. There was so many voices in there, I couldn't literally, I'm like, while I was sitting there, I was like trying to think of everyone that I could hear. Obviously the most obvious one is always Yoda, because of his voice is the most unique. I'm pretty sure Obi-Wan was in there somewhere. I think Samuel L. Jackson was in there. Mace Windu was in there somewhere. I think I heard his voice. Don't quote me on that. I cannot remember exactly, but I really like that part there, where he was like, all the Sith live in me, and in that she was like, well, all the past Jedi live in me, and then he kind of just craps himself, and, you know, he starts shooting lightning at her, and then she repels it and ends Palpatine for the absolute last time. I really like how that ended between Rey and Palpatine. I thought that was really good. My last point of good things, and this is a little bit of a funny one. A lot of people probably didn't like this, but they did this so that people would like it. It's not a big thing. It's not like, man, I really like this, but I just thought it was funny, and I had to add it in a good thing, because I did not like The Last Jedi at all. It's better than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I absolutely hate those two movies. Cannot stand them. Those parts of the movies I obviously like Darth Maul. Attack of the Clones, just get out of here. That's just meme fest. It's the only reason I kind of like it. But I like how in this movie they kind of said F Last Jedi. There was a scene in the movie where one of the guys mentions about, what's her name? The purple-headed chick. I've pulled her name out of my brain, thrown it in the trash. Don't want to remember her name ever again. When, in The Last Jedi, it's a really good scene. It's shot really well, but it is stupid. Where she light speeds into the massive Star Destroyer and destroys it. Someone mentions to do that, and then some other guy comes in and was like, no, that is a 1 in a million shot, never mention that again. And that I found that absolutely hilarious where they said never mention that again. It's literally like J.J. Abrams is saying, never mention The Last Jedi ever again. That is basically what he said, and I thought that that was kind of funny. And I kind of liked that a little bit because of I did not like The Last Jedi, and it set this movie up for failure. Now to my last point about this movie, and it is a very big point. A lot of people are hating on this, and I think people are unreasonable, very, very unreasonable at this point, and it is how Leia was used in this movie. People forget that Carrie Fisher died rest her soul, died in 2016. I think before this movie was finished filming. So a lot of the shots from this movie were deleted scenes or other scenes from some of the other movies that they didn't use and then put into this movie. And a lot of people saying that it was bad. Well, it's like, what do you expect? What do you expect? Carrie Fisher died before this movie finished filming. And she was still alive after The Last Jedi, so they had to have her in this movie somehow. Obviously, they were going to kill her off. Obviously, she wasn't going to be used in that movie this much. Obviously, there was going to be parts in the movie where it's like, it kind of looked like she didn't really know what was going on, because it did seem like she was kind of just there a lot of the times, and she had no clue what was going on. But you can't blame them. You honestly can't blame them. She passed away before this movie was finished, so they had to add her into this movie somehow. I do like how she did die, where she what's it called? She reached out to Ben for the last time. She's a very old character in the movies. Obviously Carrie Fisher was still pretty young, obviously at an old age, but in this movie, in the Star Wars, world, she is obviously a very, very old soul. So she only had a little bit left in her, especially because of the amount of crap that she's gone through. That can take a lot on a person in general, the amount of stress and anxiety that someone like that would go through. So to reach out to him one last time through the Force was really good in the way they got rid of her. Also, one last thing that I didn't mention, how they gave the medal to Chewbacca. I love that. I absolutely love that, because if you watch In A New Hope, Luke got a medal, Han Solo got a medal, Chewbacca never got a medal, but they gave it to him. Like I said, I thought it was a good movie. If The Last Jedi honestly was done a lot better and portrayed a lot of things that they wanted to do in this movie, and they started it in The Last Jedi, it would have been an awesome movie. I think a lot of people are giving the movie too much slack because they're coming in already hating it. There's a lot of people that just came in the movie like, that's it, I'm coming in the movie not to like it. I went into the movie, I'm like, it's Star Wars, I'm going to go in there, I'm not expecting the best movie in the world, but it's Star Wars. I'm going to see how it is. And I went in there with an open mind, and I liked it. I never expected it to be a very, very good movie because of The Last Jedi, because of, but in the end, I thought it was a good movie. It's the best way that they could have finished off this trilogy because of Last Jedi. But thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit up with a like. It is a little bit different than everything else I do. I usually do gaming videos, but I absolutely love Star Wars, so I really wanted to make a review of this movie, especially because of the amount of slack that it's copping. I think it's copping a little bit too much slack. But anyways, if you like this video, make sure you hit up a like and subscribe for more. Laters.